En este evento que nombramos Reimaginando San Miguel de Allende como una comunidad sustentable, llega a nosotros porque sabemos que en el camino de la educación, que es de 7 días por 24 horas, involucra mucho toda esta parte ambiental y lo que contiene, todos los factores que toda esta palabra significa. Y bueno, para no quitar mucho tiempo
from the speakers, so I am going to introduce Roberto. Roberto is going to be introducing today's speakers, and he's going to give us the different points of the agenda. Okay, so I am going to introduce the different members of the panel. I am going to start with Leticia Merino. She has a PhD in anthropology by the Social Research Institute of the National University, UNAM. UNAM is very well known nowadays. Oh, she is very well known because she is coordinator of the Environmental Agenda 2018 project. This is going to be the topic of her presentation. This is a research that involves more than 40 researchers. They are part of a university seminar, and in this seminar we have the participation of a number of institutions: the National University, the Zacatecas University, the National Council of Science and Technology, and so on. So I give you Leticia Merino. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about your resume, something very brief. But let me introduce Graciela Martínez. She is one of the founders and the current director of the Center for Agricultural Development, CEDESA, located in the municipality of Dolores Hidalgo. However, now they have a number of areas of influence. So I give you Graciela Martínez. With us, we also have Mr. Henry Miller, Director of the Civil Association El Maíz Más Pequeño and coordinator of the Watersheds People and Climate Change Project. Different adaptation processes in the Tamba Picacho watershed. So I give you Henry Miller as well. Each of the members will have about 20 minutes for their presentations, 20 minutes each. After the 3 presentations, we are going to have a last 5-minute participation so they can give us their conclusions before starting with the Q&A session. So you have to write your questions on a piece of paper. Actually, we are giving away some cards. If you have questions, you need to put them on those cards. We're going to collect the cards and we are going to be picking some of those questions. Those questions which are not answered will be answered in writing. So does everyone has a card for the questions? So after the 5-minute presentations, we are going to have the Q&A session, and after that, we are going to have a break. Jose Luis, the technician is asking us to stand right in the middle. So we are going to start with the presentations. Thank you very much.
Hola, rápidamente. Yo hubiera querido ser bióloga
I
porque
wanted to
yo
be a
siempre
biologist,
había estudiado mucha química.
but I was afraid
Entonces
of chemistry.
decidí ser
So I
psicóloga
decided to become a
porque
psychologist, but I
también
didn't
me
like
parecía
it.
ciencia
So I
naturaleza.
went
Pero
into
siempre
social
tuve como una
sciences.
inquietud muy fuerte por trabajar
However,
temas que tienen que
I
ver con
always
la
wanted to work
naturaleza,
with
el
nature
mundo
and the
marino.
environment
Y
and
eso he
people.
venido haciendo
And
desde
that's
que
what I
tengo
have been doing
25
for
años,
about
que bueno,
45 or
he tenido
50
varios
years.
empleadores, he tenido la suerte de trabajar en
Throughout that
instituciones
time, I have been
gubernamentales
lucky to
en
work on
donde
these issues.
desarrollé
I am a professor at a
investigación
national university,
y
and this
trabajando
is a
muchos años
privilege,
en
I have to
unidades
say.
con
For
comunidades
many years, I
comunitarias
have
y he
worked with
sido
different communities,
maestro
and the
a
communities
psicólogos
have been my
junto
teachers.
con la doctora Irina Nostrom,
I
una
have worked with
enfermera
Erina
biologista
Nostrom
muy
from
metida
the
en el
Indiana
tema ambiental
University.
desde el 2009
I was also involved with the
y
people
Irina
that
es el
got
premio Nobel
the
de
Nobel
Ecología.
Prize
Pero sí
in
tengo que ver también con mis
2017.
estudios.
But I don't want to tell you about myself.
Déjenme pasar
So
esta
allow me to
diapositiva.
continue with the subject matter of
Como les
this
decía,
session.
yo he venido reconociendo que la universidad
I acknowledge that the
tiene un interés
university
por los temas ambientales y hay gente que
is
trabaja en distintas
interested in people
disciplinas,
working in
biólogos,
different areas:
químicos,
biologists,
geólogos,
chemists,
sociólogos,
geologists,
antropólogos,
sociologists,
politólogos, y que a todos
political
les
science
hemos
people.
trabajado de manera muy aislada.
But we were working rather
Desde
isolated.
distintos lugares, desde los distintos temas que trabajamos,
From our
analizamos
different
la
areas,
sociedad
we
exterior
understand
y
that the
empezamos
environment
también
is
a
being
ubicarnos y sabemos la realidad,
affected.
que lo experimentamos
This is
en la
something
sociedad.
that we
Si yo
experience
comparaba la
on
situación de
our
basura en nuestro
daily
centro de
lives.
concentración
If I
en una
compare
ciudad de
the
México
situation
como
of
hace
Mexico City,
20,
or if I compare
22
the
años,
situation of
hace 20 o
forests
30 años
to the
estaba
situation that we had
completamente
20 or 40 years
esta es
ago,
mi experiencia de vida en un lugar
so this is my personal
donde veo
experience,
el agotamiento de
we
los
have been able
ecosistemas.
to see how the
En el caso
ecosystems
de
have been depleted.
los colaboradores
Over the
que
last
hemos
4 years,
podido
I have
trabajar
worked
junto
with
con
the
investigadores,
Intergovernmental Panel at the
estas especificidades de los biólogos
United
son
Nations.
extremas.
I don't want to
Son
be an alarmist,
muchas.
but the problems are
Entonces,
very big.
el rector de la UNAM me invitó hace
The
2 años
director of
a
UNAM
incluirme
invited me
y
a couple of
decidió
years ago. He said,
que
well,
yo
you're
trabajo
interested in this field,
en
so
distintas
please
disciplinas,
work
sea
with
como
other
sea,
people
y
from other
analizamos
areas
metodológicamente
and come up
el
with a
ambiente.
number of
El rector
proposals.
nos dijo, ¿por qué no
A year
hacemos
and
en la universidad
ago,
una serie de
the
propuestas para hacer
director
país?
said, why don't we
Yo
develop a
nunca he
series
estado
of
tan
proposals as part of
interesada en
the election
política
process?
desde no haber
I was
política
not
que
ever into
trabajar
politics.
con la
I think
gente,
we have to work
porque
with the
somos
grassroots.
decisiones en política.
However, decision
Normalmente las
makers
decisiones que pasan a fregados
sometimes
pasan
sometimes
a
make
destruir
decisions that
la
destroy
calidad
or
de las
affect
cuestiones de nuestra propia vida.
the environment, our
Entonces
lives.
nos reunimos en la
So we
universidad
came
una serie
together at
de
this
gente
university
y
seminar.
vimos qué temas eran los más
We
graves, los que
identified
teníamos
the
que
most
poner
important
y
topics,
agarramos las
and
manos,
we
empezamos
got down
a
to
hacer lo que
work,
empezó a
hands
hacer
on.
también Henry.
And Henry
Era
has a copy of
sencillo,
the
fácil de
diagnosis,
leer,
something that
podía
was
ayudar
easy to
a
read, something like National
Entonces,
Geographic
una
with
idea
very nice
era de
pictures.
hablar
The idea
con los
was
candidatos de
to
políticos
talk
para
to
elegir
the campaigns of
a la Ciudad de
the
México.
different
Entonces, vimos
candidates
cómo se
to the
llevaba
president's
la
office.
campaña de
So
Morena, cómo se llevaba
we
con el
worked
PRI,
with Morena,
la campaña
we
del
worked
PAN,
with the
del
PAN,
PRD,
the
del México al
PRD,
frente y con la
Todos
campaña
por
de
México al
Graciela
Frente,
Martínez
and the
Henry Miller.
PRI.
Es que habláramos
These
con
were the
todo
instructions
mundo
of the director of the
y
university.
ayudáramos
We
a
were
que
going to talk to everyone
sacaran
because we didn't want
decisiones
people to think that we
antes
were
de tener que
putting
estar con
the
todo mundo.
balance on one side. So we had to speak with everyone, and I thought that was
Lo que
very
pasó
good.
finalmente es que las
So what
campañas
happened?
hicieron demasiado caso. Entonces, ¿qué
The
ganaron?
election campaigns didn't pay attention to what we were
Pero
saying,
para nuestra
not very
sorpresa,
much. But
tuvimos un
we were
interés muy
surprised
fuerte por parte de la
because
prensa,
the
por
press
parte
was
de la
very
televisión, por
interested
parte del
in
noticiero y por parte de
what
la
we had
ciudadanía.
to say.
Entonces,
citizens were interested. So this confirms something that I have believed right from the beginning. We have to work with people. We have to work with everyday live situations. Like here in San Miguel de Allende, if we do not involve the people, we are not going to change. Right now, we want to take our proposals, the proposals from this seminar, to the Congress and to the Senate. Some of the proposals are very general in nature. So let me talk about the different topics. Many people think that academicians are very pessimistic. We are always forecasting the end of the world, but we also try to propose public policy recommendations for citizens because at the end of the day, we are citizens. So we feel identified with citizens. I am going to give you this guide of good practices. These are the implications in our everyday lives when it comes to the use of waters and resources, natural resources, that is, because the idea is to improve this sustainable world. We want to go beyond the normal recommendations like close the tap because we are running out of water.
en términos, bueno, les di
So let me give you a general perspective of this. This was
como
the general concern. This is how everything started. The first topic that we worked on was water.
de veras el panorama del agua en México
The water scenario in
tiene
Mexico is
niveles
quite
dependiendo de
concerning.
dónde veas expertos.
We
Pues
might
hay
have
expertos
experts for each of these areas. I work with forests, but I learned about water as well. The situation of the watersheds in Mexico is very bad. Some of them are very contaminated, very polluted, and this has to do with the change of how water is managed as of 1992 with the new national waters law that was signed just before the NAFTA agreement. This law tries to create markets for water and it tries to promote investors and companies. So they create the CONAGUA and the concessions. Traditional villages need to work as ACs, civil organizations, and to work under the figure of concessions. Many of them were not able to do it. Conagua's activities are not along with the lines of the rights of water, and sometimes there is an excess of concessionaires. Industrials or the industry receives more water than they need. So they give concessions in protected areas, reserves. They give connections in some overused watersheds, and because of this, we have a significant depletion of the watersheds. Obviously, we are not going to talk about this today, but this generates social problems because of the lack of transparency. The lack of transparency and the lack of policies for water distribution in Mexico. The problems that started in the 80s became bigger as of 1992. Apart from the amount of water, apart of the lack of water in communities, we also find very difficult situations of pollution. 80% of the waters in cities are not treated. That's why people do not want to drink from the tap. This is not something applicable to the United States, and in Mexico we depend on bottled water. But the bottled water is much more expensive than drinking from the tap, than drinking from a source that should be that should have the right quality. And then we have emerging contaminants, plastics and radioactive materials. Plastics disrupt the hormones, and this has a big impact on health. When it comes to the water issue, our proposal, and we're going to have a seminar at the Congress about this. One Senator, Alvarez Icaza, is going to present an initiative, a bill. This is to become a new law in order to get rid of the CONAGUA and the concessions system. So we are going to have a system on this. The second topic that we worked on, and sometimes this is not seen as environmental related, is farming and agriculture. In Mexico, the soil has been depleted. We have many industrial plantations with a model that is benefiting corporations, and this is increasing quite significantly as of the NAFTA agreement. And we have also the bankruptcy of small producers. And this is a very serious problem. Nowadays, 80% of food that we eat in Mexico are produced by 8 corporations, some of them transnational corporations. That is to say, the capacity of food production in the hands of small producers, because small producers have sustainable practices, but this number has been reduced because, and the FAO considers that sustainable farming should be based on small production. In the case of Mexico, we don't have a profitability in the case of small production, so we are using maize that has been produced in the United States. I don't believe in borderlines, but we are not even when it comes to the production of products because we are competing with the transnational companies. Also, the plantations for imports. President Peña Nieto says that we are importing products, including tequila, but that really makes me afraid because we are importing avocado, and 30% of the forests of Michoacan have disappeared because the forests have been substituted for avocado trees, and the soil is not even suitable for avocado growing, and they are also using chemical products, and this is going to affect the coverage of forests. And what happens with the palm tree oil production in the south? We have the production of transgenic oil in the Yucatan Peninsula. So that is to say, in the case of farming, we have many problems. We don't have solutions, but we do have proposals, and I think these proposals are achievable, like buying local, buying seasonal products, buying from small producers. In Europe, this is something that is acknowledged. In Europe, they acknowledged the participation of small and medium-sized production, uh, especially from the environment point of view. When it comes to forests, and I know I'm running out of time, I want to point out that we have illegality problems. 70% of timber production comes from illegal sources. Sometimes it is not feasible for producers to produce legally. We have over regulations, many requirements are put in place, and the market is flooded with import, imports from other countries, and the environmental conditions for producing this timber is not very good. I am going to pick some other topics because I want to be able to talk about all of them. It doesn't make any sense after all because you have the agenda and this will be available on the website of the seminar. But there's an important topic, mining. We have talked about socio-economic problems. This is, well, Mexico has been a mining country ever since the colony. We have the case of Guanajuato, Zacatecas. These have been mining areas for many years, but the mining industry was stopped, or it stopped right in the middle of the 90s because the ores, the traditional ores, had depleted.
producción a nivel mundial. Si vemos por una parte, por la demanda, el crecimiento de la demanda de
But there
productos
was an
que
increase
van
of the
a
demand
economías emergentes,
because of
solas,
emerging economies, India, China,
los metales,
and the price of
finalmente
metals
los
during
metales,
the
los
90s,
combustibles
during the
se incrementan
2000,
de manera
increased quite
los países,
significantly.
sobre todo
And
los países
countries, Latin
latinoamericanos,
American countries especially, including Mexico, so
digitalización,
try to change the economy. They left the industry to one side and they started producing, or they started producing minerals using a new technology, the open pit technology. And this has a big impact on the environment, on the ecosystems. What happens with this open pit technology? A lot of water is injected, just like in fracking, water with a lot of chemicals. And because of the pressure, we have a separation of the different chemical components. We have gold, silver, copper, and sometimes these products are difficult to get from rocks. I have been working on a book for a couple of days, and in order to produce a gold ring like the one I'm wearing, well, it is necessary to extract 8 tons of rock. Rock that comes with water, water with contaminants. The leaching process for separating gold uses cyanide. So imagine this. We use cyanide, mercury. In the case of silver, we have to use sulfur sulfate. In the case of copper, well, let me give you the case of, well, the consequence of what can happen is the case of Minera Mexico in the state of Sonora. This is property of Grupo Mexico. The leaching dams broke because of the rains, and we had a leak of these products, and the products went to the river Sonora. The sustainability lab of the National University analyzed the contaminants in the water, in the soil, and in the mammals in the area. And the Ministry of the Environment forbade the publication of the results. The university was not allowed to publish the results. I have a copy of the results, but I was warned, Letty, if you publish this, I am going to jail. Incredible, in this country we have these natural disasters, but researching about the environmental impact of these disasters has become a crime. Imagine that. So I think that the mining issue, well, it's very difficult to say no to the mining industry, especially if we take into consideration the income that we have in terms of the GDP. It does not represent not even 2% of the GDP. If we analyze the income for the country, it only represents 2.6%. When it comes to employment, well, this new type of mining strategies is not having a big impact on employment because the employment is highly qualified. Most of these people come from other areas. One of my friends said, well, this generates currencies. Maybe we need to have a national debate in order to determine the benefits of the mining industry. because there is no
evitar
real
como ciudadanos
value
no
in
estar de
it.
acuerdo que
As
se
citizens, we
establezca
needed to demand the change of the mining law. The mining law was also signed as part of the NAFTA
sobre cualquier
agreement.
otra actividad, esto es una conservación de la biodiversidad,
And it seems that
el
this
soterramiento,
law
la realización de minería
allows the mining to
ilegal
go
y la
beyond
deforestación.
some other
Y eso
laws,
es
like the
lo que
natural
hace que la
law.
minería
So I think mining
sea una
needs to
actividad
stop being
considerable
a
en nuestro
significant
territorio,
activity.
sea
What needs to be significant is human rights and the sovereignty of the country and the conservation of nature. And I am running out of time. 2 minutes, okay.
En el tema de costas y
When
de
it comes to the
comunicaciones,
coastlines, well, I have to
tremendo
say that
tema
the
de
situation is is
problemas
very difficult.
de
We have
contaminación.
the lack of oxygen in the oceans, and this has to do with the use of fertilizers.
Nosotros
This
estamos
really calls my
trabajando
attention. The use of plastics. This is something that has become a fashion. Now everyone is concerned about plastic consumption because of the impact it has on oceans. And there is something that called my attention: the microplastic issue. Microplastics are the fibers that are detached from plastic, even textiles like nylon or lycra. When we wash these clothing, particles detach, and you might say that this is nothing, but we are millions around the globe, so we have to do something about this. And we also have to work on waste materials. Well, the intention of all these is to be useful. We want to be useful as a university. What's the point of view of studying something that is not going to be useful? Something might be interesting for you, but they don't have a social impact. We have to remember that the university receives money from everyone. So allow me to mention some of the general conclusions that we reached in the study. The environmental policy is not something that is significant. It's not something that you find on every policy. It is not what Peña Nieto says. It's not only organizations without resources. It's not only the protection of the vaquita marina or other endangered species. It goes beyond this. The environmental agenda is includes farming, fishing, mining, economy, school, education, health. This agenda has to be part of the different areas of the human being. It is not only about Semarnat. It is not only about political issues. And we have the transversality of the environment and the lack of justice. Environmental problems affect those who are vulnerable, those who are poor. Mexico City is an uneven place. Hopefully, the new mayor will be able to do something. In the Delegación Miguel Hidalgo, access to water represents 800 cubic meters of water per day. That's in Miguel Hidalgo. And the recommendation of the World Health Organization is 150. Well, in Miguel Hidalgo is 800, and in Ixtapalapa they only have 150 cubic meter. That is to say, not many people have access to water, and those who have access to water don't use the water; they buy the water. So this environmental justice issue is something very important. And allow me to finish with this, and I think this is related to the topic of this session. The environmental policy in Mexico needs to be defined somewhere else but in the government. There are many things like the territory management, water management, biodiversity management, mining management, energy management, and I didn't talk about that, but this is something that we needed to define from a local point of view, because environment management requires the participation of citizens. As an inhabitant of Mexico City, I don't know what's happening in Sonora or in San Miguel de Allende. So we have to break this central perspective. And it doesn't mean that we have to change the addresses of the different entities. Not by changing the ministries, we are going to change the empowerment situation. I am not going to be giving power to the local people. I think the environment needs to be built from the grassroots, but we have to press those on top levels. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Leticia.
Thank you very much,
Pues
Leticia.
creo que todos nos quedamos con ganas de seguir escuchando toda esta
I
información.
know you want to
Hay mucha
continue
lectura que
listening
podemos
about
hacer
this
en estos
information.
días y
Obviously,
vamos a
we are
pasar
going
los
to be
enlaces para que
reading a
puedan
lot of materials. We are going to give
utilizar
you
el
the
evento
links
sin
so you can
información.
have access
Y
to
cómo
this
utilizamos
information.
este evento es para poder escuchar a
The
Leticia
purpose
de
of
manera
this
individual
event
sobre los
is
temas
to
relacionados
listen
al tema
to Leticia.
y
She
poder
has a lot of
escucharla desde la
information, as you have
perspectiva de lo
seen,
local.
but as
Entonces,
she says,
invitamos a
we
todos
have to
los ponentes
start
que son
with the
actores
local. So we have two other
también
members of the panel, and they are
y para
representing
poder
San
entonces
Miguel
ver
de
el
Allende.
Allende desde lo que hace la
Now
ciudad
we are going to see what's happening in San Miguel de
para
Allende. What
muchos
are the
lugares donde
solutions
se
to
trabaja.
some local
Y bueno,
problems?
los invitamos
And
después
now,
del programa que después de las preguntas y
after
respuestas
the
a
Q&A
45
session, we are
minutos
going to have
para que
45
podamos
minutes
empezar con esta hora.
in
Vamos a
order
hacer
to
mesas de
speak up.
diálogo
We are
y
going to
vamos a
have
hablar de todos
different
estos temas
dialogue
que
tables,
tocamos
and we are going to be
en
talking
San
about
Miguel.
the
Todas
different
estas mesas
issues
de
that
diálogo.
we are
Entonces,
living
después de
in
las
San
preguntas y
Miguel.
respuestas,
After the Q&A
vamos a
session,
llevar
you
para los
can join
sesiones
these
para
tables, and we're going to
todas
give you
las
the
mesas de
instructions
diálogo.
in the back.
Henry y
But
Graciela.
we have Henry and Graciela before that.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Hello, good
Mi
evening.
nombre es
My name
Graciela
is
Martínez
Graciela
Delgado.
Martinez
Yo
Delgado.
estudié en la
I
Universidad
didn't
Normal
go to university formally.
y estudié en la
I
Universidad de la
studied
Vida
in
de
the
CEDESA.
University of Life. I
Tengo
call it
trabajando en
CEDESA.
CEDESA más de
I have
45
worked
años
for CEDESA
y para
for
mí
more than
esto,
45 years,
este caminar me ha ido haciendo
and that
y me ha ido
experience
formando y me
has
ha hecho
helped me
realmente la persona
become the
que
person
he eliminado
that I am now.
con nuestras comunidades
A person
de
that has
origen
worked with
y
indigenous
poder
communities,
ayudarles
with
a
rural
ellos.
communities in this
Para los que
region.
no conocen, varios de ustedes, yo creo que ya
If
me
you don't
conocen,
know me,
pero varios de ustedes no conocen la CEDESA.
you know
CEDESA
CEDESA.
se ubica en el kilómetro uno
CEDESA
carretera
is on the way to
El Llanito,
El
que es
Llanito.
de Dolores
From
Hidalgo,
Dolores
una
Hidalgo,
de las pocas comunidades indígenas que
this is one
todavía
of the fewest, one of the
existen.
very last
Tenemos varios
indigenous
indicadores
communities in the municipality. So we are on in the city of Dolores
trabajamos
Hidalgo, but
desde hace CEDESA tiene
CEDESA, the Center for Agricultural
54
Development, has been
años,
working for
cumplimos en febrero 54 años
54 years, yes.
de un servicio permanente y
And
constante
on a
a
continuous
nuestros
basis, we have giving services
comunidades
to
campesinas
farming
de
communities
ejidos
in the
que
region.
hoy denominamos
In the
Cuenca
region that
de
we
la
know as
Independencia.
Cuenca de la Independencia,
Es
the
una
Independence
región del
Basin.
norte de la
It is a small
Independencia
region
que la forman 7 municipios
composed of 7
y es
municipalities.
Dolores Hidalgo,
Dolores
San
Hidalgo, well,
Felipe, con
San
el río
Felipe
Laja,
with
nos vamos
the
hacia
Laja
San
River,
Diego,
then
San
we
Luis de
have
la
San
Paz,
Diego, San Luis de la Paz,
Doctor Mora, San
Doctor
José
Mora, San José
Iturbide
Iturbide,
y nos venimos
and I am missing some of
y
them, San Diego, well,
Dolores
and we
Hidalgo
have
y
Dolores
acabamos
Hidalgo.
aquí en San Miguel de
And we
Allende.
finish with San Miguel de Allende at Presa Allende.
Que
Presa
pasa por la
Allende
cuenca de la
receives all the
Independencia.
water
En esta
that comes
cuenca
from the
tenemos
mountains.
ríos
In this basin, we
canalizaciones.
have mountains all
Todo el
around.
agua que se
So all the
de
water
diferentes
that
canales
goes
baja
to or
aquí a
comes
San Miguel.
comes from the mountains goes to the San Miguel de Allende area. That's why we have contaminated waters in this area. But we also have many springs in San Miguel de Allende.
en la ribera del río San Damián, en la
We
ribera
have the
del
San
río
Damian
Colorado,
River communities.
San Miguel tiene problemas de salud
But San Miguel
muy
has
graves
very
por
important or significant
contaminación
health
de
problems
desechos.
because this
Como las
polluted
mujeres
water
toman
goes
los
beyond
aguas
generations.
de
Communities
verdad
used to
de los
drink from the
desechos
rivers, from the
y
different
contaminantes y
water bodies.
se ha dañado mucho su salud
And
porque son
because of these,
que
they
son
have affected
y
their health because they are drinking water with fluoride. So we have serious health problems in the San Miguel Allende area because we've got contaminated water.
solamente el agua potable, hoy ya
It's not only
subterránea
about shallow
y no es
waters.
solamente el
We are
agua
also
potable,
talking about underground waters, not only in San Miguel de Allende.
en todo lo que compone
Water is contaminated all through the Independence Basin.
crédito a la Universidad Nacional Autónoma
I
de
have to
México,
acknowledge the work of the National University. As Dr. Leticia was saying, we have Dr. Marcos Guerrero in the area, and he is in charge of all this research. And
conocer la realidad de compromiso.
we have become committed because we know the reality now.
Para formar conciencia.
The purpose of this type of seminars is to create awareness. Information means that we need to develop ourselves. We need to develop awareness of what's happening in our locality. We're talking about 7,000 kilometers in the Independence Basin.
Reimaginando
I thought about the title of the session, Reimagining San Miguel de Allende,
sostenible.
as a sustainable community.
No tenemos que reimaginar
We don't have
solo
to reimagine San Miguel de
porque San
Allende
Miguel
only,
Allende no está solo.
because San Miguel de Allende is not by itself.
Muchísimos problemas.
San Miguel de Allende might
Si
have
no
many problems,
tomamos en cuenta San
but
Luis,
if we
si
don't
no
take into
tomamos en cuenta
consideration
San
San
Diego,
Felipe, San
San
Diego, San Luis
Salvador,
de la
San
Paz,
Iturbide,
San José
Dolores
Iturbide,
Hidalgo,
Dolores Hidalgo, well,
no
San
puede
Miguel
ser
Allende by itself
sustentable,
will
no
not
puede
be
ser
sustainable,
sostenible,
will not become
porque
sustainable,
tenemos muchos
because we
problemas
have
en esta
many
región
problems in the region, in
oriental.
the Independence Basin region.
¿Qué nos ha provocado? ¿Qué nos ha generado estos
What's the
problemas?
origin of these
Como lo decía la
problems?
doctora hace un
As
ratito,
Dr.
es
Leticia
un
was saying,
ecosistema que
this
está
is an
degradado,
ecosystem, a
Leticia.
depleted
¿Por
ecosystem.
qué? Porque
Why?
la agroindustria, la
Because the
explotación de
farming
las aguas
industry, the
subterráneas para
exploitation of
producir
underground waters in order to
alimentos
produce
a otros
food for
países,
other countries
nos vino a dañar mucho la
has
región,
damaged
porque en
the region.
60 años la
In
agricultura de
60
riego, la
years,
industria
the
acabó con
industry
los
has
motores que
depleted
teníamos para
the
la
waters
producción
that we
humana.
had for
Hoy no
water
queda nada,
consumption.
son aguas
Now
fósiles,
we only have
pero son aguas
fossil
fósiles,
waters,
están dañadas y
but these waters
están
are
llenas de
contaminated.
desechos
They are
químicos,
polluted with
están
chemicals.
dañando
They are
no
polluted and
solamente
they
el ser
are
humano,
damaging not
están
only
dañando
human
todo el
health, they are
territorio,
damaging the territory itself
está
because the territory
desertificando
is becoming a desert.
y están dañando fuertemente a los
And this
polinizadores.
is also affecting the
Nosotros somos
pollination process.
apicultores
We produce
en
bees
la cuenca hemos promovido
in the
durante
basin. In the
casi
basin, for
40
about
años la
40 years, we
apicultura
have been
y
promoting
la
the production
apicultura
of
para
bees.
nosotros era
Bees for us
una fuente
used to be a
grande de
source, a big
alimento,
source
pues
of
para
food,
nosotros también es
and
sostener
also a big
nuestra
source
economía
of
familiar,
money for
de
our
sostener
families.
incluso
It
los
was a
planes de
means of
familia,
improving
porque
our
la apicultura
households.
nos ayudaba mucho a ello.
Bee
Hoy
production has helped
ha
us.
bajado
But
casi
now
50%.
we have had a
Por el
decrease of
daño que están
50% because
haciendo
of the
los
damage
agroquímicos,
produced
por
by
el daño
chemicals,
que
farming
están
chemicals.
haciendo con los
because of the damage produced because of the exploitation of underground waters. Now we don't have nopal, maguey, the cactus are dying, they are becoming
el
extinct.
territorio camina hacia la
Our
desertificación
territory is
y
becoming
tenemos
a
que ser
desert. If
mucho
we
más
don't work
preocupados
together now, if
defender
we do
nuestro
not
bienestar
defend
porque se
what we
sigue
have,
extraviando todo
because
y se sigue extrayendo
wells continue to
realmente
be
agua
drilled,
para la
water
agricultura
continues
y
to be
para la
exploited
industria.
for farming and
Y
industry
no estamos
purposes.
con eso.
And that's not
Viendo
the
por
end of the
los
story. Now we
industriales
have industrial
que
corridors,
dominan
and those corridors
todo lo que está
are damaging the
en
territory.
San
We
Luis
have
Potosí,
this
que
corridor
daña
in
toda
San
esa
Luis
parte, todo
Potosí,
ese territorio de
and,
la
and
región
that
indígena,
industrial park is
Doctor Mora,
affecting
San Luis
Dr.
de la
Mora,
Paz,
San Luis de la Paz,
también nos afecta
and
a
that's also
todos.
affecting
Por
us.
eso luchamos para
That's
poder
why we
establecer
don't want those
la,
parks to open.
¿cómo se llama? La fábrica de cianuro.
We didn't want the cyanide
Las,
factory
las
to open in the region, and
luchamos,
we
pero
stopped
hoy hay
that.
una lucha
And it was a
de la paz
struggle. It was not the
fuera,
struggle of San
una
Luis de la
lucha
Paz, it
por
was the
nuestra
struggle of the whole
visión
basin,
social,
of the
donde
whole
los
region, with the
santiagueros
participation of San
participamos
Diego, San Felipe,
con
San
nuestro
Miguel.
ayuntamiento
Most of
en
the
esta lucha
municipalities
y hasta el momento
participated in the struggle, and thank God we stopped the opening of the cyanide factory in the region.
entonces, quiero volver a decirles que la salud humana
Allow me
hoy
to say this again.
está deteriorada,
Human health
cáncer
has been
en la
affected.
siguiente
We
generación,
have
todas las
high
generaciones
cancer
a nosotros,
rates because
hay
of
muchos
these
cánceres
generations that have been drinking
cáncer
this
de
polluted
útero,
water. We have different types
de
of
la
cancer.
mucha cirrosis dental,
We
dolores
also have
musculoesqueléticos,
teeth problems,
cardiometabólicos,
skeleton
todo
problems, nerve
viene,
problems.
viene lento ese razonamiento. Entonces,
People
en
have
Dolores Hidalgo
slow
muchas
reasoning.
insuficiencias renales,
In Dolores Hidalgo, we have many kidney problems.
casi todos los
And in
municipios.
all the municipalities, we have different health problems,
Discúlpeme,
especially kidney problems.
se me olvidó traerle mi agua. Sí
Forgive
necesito.
me if I am drinking from this bottle. I normally don't
Sí
drink from a
necesito
bottle,
tomar agua
but I
porque
need
estoy
to drink
hablando.
when I am
Entonces,
speaking.
esta es nuestra
So
situación.
that's the current
En la
situation.
casa ya tuve ese daño que tenemos.
And these are the
Y
damages that we have
CDS es
suffered.
una de las
And
ONGs
CEDESA has been working for 50
muchísimo
years.
CDS.
But we are very few at CEDESA.
Muchísimo.
There are
Por
many
eso
people in the
estamos
region.
haciendo de llamar, de convocar, de
It's
reunirnos, de
good
reunirse.
to have this
Es
type of
benéfico.
meetings.
Y
It's
quiero
very
comenzar con
important to
este
talk
tema
about
del
this.
proceso
Allow me
educativo.
to talk about the
Porque
educational
no
process
solamente
that we have.
trabajamos
It's not only about
en
water. We also work with
farmacéutica,
food. We also work with farming
porque no
owners.
montes hoy están destinados para la agricultura,
Mountains,
porque cuando se
mountains are
nacionalizaron las
being used
farmacéuticas
for bee
no podían
production
dominar
because
los farmacéuticos.
we were not able to
Entonces
produce
hoy
in our
no
areas because
puedo
the
estar
African bees. Now the
nacionalizando las
mountains have
farmacéuticas
become
porque
a
deben
center
de
for
utilizarlos
bee
y para
production,
obtener alimentos ellos.
so we can get
Entonces,
food from
¿cómo
them,
hacemos todo
from
este
bees.
trabajo? No es fácil el
But it's not
trabajo con la
easy to
gente.
work with
Yo sé
people.
muchos de ustedes
I am sure that you
no
know
quieren
this.
trabajar con
That's
la
why you don't
gente.
want to work with
No es
people,
nada
because
fácil.
it's not easy to work
Y cuando
with
uno va
people.
avanzando, llegan los
When
programas de
you are making
gobierno.
progress, then you have
Muchas
some
instituciones
government project, or you have another institution with a different methodology,
avanzando.
and our
Casi
progress
nada.
goes
Y
to the ground.
llegamos a la comunidad. Hay que hacer un trabajo de
We go to the
promoción.
different communities and we
De la
promote
gente tiene que
our
entender
work.
por qué
People
organizar
need
el
to
trabajo.
understand
De
why
la
they
gente
need
tiene que
to
entender que
organize,
se están
why
haciendo
they
cosas.
need to
De la
build
gente va a organizar el
a
trabajo.
water tank,
No se
why they
organiza
need to
porque
produce
tengan que
in their
trabajar. Es
backyard,
porque
why they
se van
need
a
to
organizar para trabajar con
organize
la
to
gente.
work with
Parte del
bees.
programa es promover la
It's all
conciencia
about
de la población.
promoting the
El
awareness
siguiente
of a
paso
people.
ya
The
para la
next
nuestra
step is to
gente. No
continuously
podemos
work
llegar y
with them.
sostener y llevar el
What's
plan
the
y
point
poner
of
programas.
promoting?
Eso para
What's
qué
the
vamos
point
a
of
tener programas.
providing
Si
materials?
nosotros
That's what
no
the government
trabajamos con
does.
los programas,
and we do not agree with government programs. So we need to work with them on a continuous basis. We are very few. I started without a salary. It was only our willingness to participate with the community. We wanted to participate with Padre Memo. But it was only this willingness to service. But that's what really motivates me, and this is what motivates my colleagues, the needs of the communities. And working with communities is not easy, but we are there and we are making progress. We are training them. We're promoting ideas. We're organizing them. It's not only about projects, it's also about organizing people. We need to have an organization in the different communities in order, and that's why we have the the National Center of Northern Communities of Guanajuato. We have the Commission of for the Protection of the Independence Basin, different types of organizations. That's also part of our work. And we have to promote community trade. So, my brothers and sisters, that's our work. But we also have meetings with different organizations because that really promotes community strengthening. We have different meetings with organizations. For us, that's education, that's training. When we learned about the water problem, we came to UNAM. We wanted them to help us with some training. And the university said we're going to have some courses. So far, we have received 2 hands-on courses because we want people from the communities to understand the water problem. Allow me to finish with this. And this has to do with the mining process. This is something that we live here in San Miguel. There is a mining site in San Anton de las Minas. I don't know if the mining site is already working. The state of Guanajuato is full of concessions for the mining industry. The territory has been concessioned for open pit projects. What is going to happen with these? Well, we are going to die because we are talking about poisons. The chemicals that they use are slow poisons. And now they want to come to our state to finish with human life and with the life of our territory. So we invite you, yes, talk about this in San Miguel because we have this type of conversations in different communities with different organizations, and we are trying to promote these ideas. We are trying to promote uh, working together to defend our region. We need to reduce extraction of underground waters, otherwise we are going to be left with minerals and the water is going to be useless. That's the risk that we have. So there are many other things, obviously, but I want to thank my colleagues for having invited me. Thank you very much. Thank you, Graciela. Thank you, Graciela, for giving us some context for the San Miguel de Agenda area. Remember, you need to write your questions on your card. After Henry, we are going to have a series of 5-minute presentations, and then we are going to pick the cards and we're going to be answering some of the questions. Now I give you Henry Miller. Good afternoon. And I'm going to be standing, if that's okay with you. You know that I am not from here. 23 years ago, I crossed the border from El Paso, Texas to Ciudad Juarez. I didn't know anyone in the country. 3 years before that, I
estudié
studied meteorology and climate change in the Department of Natural Sciences. When I started talking about climate change, some professors tried to convince me that this was a fashion. Ever since, I have been working with climate change issues for more than half of my life. I have been able to participate at the COP21 in Paris, thanks to the participation of some colleagues that organized a series of workshops and participations in the city of Paris. After that experience, after listening to the different specialists, after looking at how the poles are melting, after talking to different leaders from island governments who were organizing themselves in order to define where to relocate their villages.
come su gente, a qué Dios rezan, cómo construyen sus
They were
iglesias,
talking
qué
about their
llaman
people, their
enfermedades,
language,
cómo,
their religion,
cómo
in
ubicarse.
order to define a place for
Dijeron que esa
relocation purposes.
evidencia que
It was
dejó
an experience. It was quite an
conciencia de
experience, and
separación
it left
de los
a
estados
mark on
indígenas,
my consciousness.
y fue que la mejor manera de
On the way
hablar
back
del
to
cambio
Mexico,
climático
I
era no hablar del
decided
cambio climático,
that the best way to talk about
la gente no
climate change
adoptara
was not to
por
mention climate
conformación
change,
social, no hemos logrado
because
aterrizar el
as
concepto
a
en
population we
una
have not
práctica
been able to understand the concept, we have not been able to leverage this concept in a different behavior, different from the behaviors that have created the problem to begin with.
por el destino recibí notificación de la aprobación de un proyecto por parte del
In
gobierno
Mexico, I received information about a project by the Fundación Rio Ronde, Watersheds,
procesos de adaptación
People, Climate
y fue
Change
adoptado.
Project.
Y aquí mis colegas han mencionado
My colleagues have already mentioned
la palabra
the
cuenca
word
con
basin,
la ayuda de nuestra
cuenca,
señorita Paula. Me gustaría explicar
and
qué es
with
una
the
cuenca.
help of Paola, I would like to explain what a basin is.
En primer lugar, esta es una cuenca.
This is a basin.
Una cuenca es un lugar que capta
A
agua
basin is a
y
place
tiene una estructura
that
y
collects
función.
water. It has a
Las manos
structure and
humanas
it has a
representadas
function. If we
por la
take
derecha,
Paul's hand,
tenemos las tres zonas funcionales de una cuenca,
well, we
que es
have
la
the
parte
three
alta,
functional areas, the
tenemos la
top,
parte media
the
y
middle,
tenemos la parte baja.
and the bottom.
Una cuenca,
A
igual que las
basin,
manos, tiene
just
una
like
estructura
our
y
hands,
función.
has a function
La mano
and a
tiene
structure.
huesos, ligamentos,
We have
músculos,
bones,
venas, nervios,
ligaments, and
y
muscles
su
in
función
our
tiene
hands,
sus funciones.
and the hand has
Hacer
different
huertos
functions.
para agarrar los bioterrestres y hacer una milpa para construir una
We can
casa.
farm, we can build a house with our hands.
Igual que las manos, la cuenca
Just
tiene una
like the
estructura,
hands, the
estructura
basin
biológica
has a
en términos
biophysical
de
structure
estructura de suelo,
in terms of soil,
vegetación,
vegetation,
rocas, y en términos funcionales, la cuenca es el
and when
proveedor
it comes
de
to
todos
the
los bienes
functions, the
naturales que
basin
necesitamos
produces
para
the
la
natural
sobrevivir.
sources that we need for continue with
Pero,
life.
igual que las manos, si nosotros
But just like the
modificamos
hands,
la
if we
estructura
modify the
de la
structure of the basin,
modificamos la
if
estructura
we
de
modify
las
the
manos,
structure of
dejen de
our hands,
funcionar
the hands
como
stop
deberían de
working
funcionar.
as they
Cuando
should be.
modificamos la estructura,
When we modify the
modificamos
structure,
la
we
función.
modify the function.
Un aplauso.
An applause for Paul, please.
Nos fue quitado de Pikachu aquí en la pared tengo un
On the wall, I have a map.
fue quitado de Pikachu
that shows the Tambo-Picacho's basin.
lo que dijo la maestra
And this
Graciela
basin is
Martínez
part
Henry
of
Miller,
the Independence
también
Basin,
conocido como el Alto Río Laja.
known as
Entonces,
the
el
High
Tambo-Picacho
Laja River.
tiene una dimensión de
It
340
measures
kilómetros cuadrados.
390
Es
square
el
kilometers.
principal proveedor de servicios ecosistémicos.
It provides
90% de la
80%
población
of
principal
ecosystem services
es
to the
proveedor
population.
de los
It
los
provides
servicios
the
a
same
100%
services
de la población
to
urbana.
1%
Y
of
en este
urban
territorio
population.
ven
In this
la
territory,
mancha
if you
amarilla.
see the yellow
Ese es
area,
donde viene
well,
por lo
that's
menos el
where we get
90%
99%
de
of
esa
tourists.
población.
That is to say, San Miguel de Allende.
Servicios ecosistémicos. Tenemos servicios de
Ecosystemic services.
aprovechamiento.
We have
El aire que respiramos, el
air, for
agua que
instance,
bebemos,
the air that we
el
breathe,
suelo
the
que
water that we
cultivamos,
drink, the
los
soil that
recursos
we farm,
naturales
the
como
natural
la arena
resources
que
like sand
extraemos,
and the gravel
de
that
la
we
parte
extract
del río
from
Laja para
the Laja
construir
River
todo
region
el
in order to
aprovechamiento
build
del
the
aire que tenemos.
developments in San
Entonces
Miguel de Allende and in other areas.
cabe mencionar que la arena y
It
el
is
agua
important to mention that the
extraídas de
sand and
Agua Baja,
gravel exploited from
según el
this
código
region,
mexicano, tiene
according
su
to the
valor
Mexican norm, has the same
y
value
la
as gold.
extracción ha sido
And the
tan
extraction has been so
han
intense
ingresado
that
donde anteriormente fue el cauce del río.
they have changed
Causan
the path
agua
of the
que viene
river.
de la parte
The
alta del
water coming from
Tamaulipas,
the
viene
high, from the top of from
viene
the top
más
of the
fresco
basin, now comes
que
at a
cada
higher
día,
speed.
el agua filtra el manto
So
acuífero.
it doesn't filter inside
Servicios de
the watershed.
aprovechamiento, el agua. Cuando viene
We
gente
also
que está
have
aquí en
the
San Miguel
water.
Allende,
When people come to
pasa
San Miguel de Allende,
frente a la parroquia para tomar su selfie, ahí
they
la marina
stand in
para
front
tomar su
of La
margarita,
Parroquia in order to drink
ya
a
casi
margarita
regresando
and
su hotel
they
para tomar un
dirty
baño en la tarde de su santo
dishes
domingo
and they
siguiente.
use the
Pero
water
no hay
in their
realmente
toilet.
un porcentaje
But
de ese recurso que los extranjeros o más bien los turistas están
but
dejando
tourists are
para
not
construir las nubes en la parte alta de la cuenca
bringing
pantanera.
clouds in order to
Hablamos
replace this
aquí
water that they are
en el
using.
programa habla de sustentabilidad.
We're talking
¿Cómo
about
podemos discutir de
sustainability.
sustentabilidad?
We cannot
Si no
have
tenemos reciprocidad
sustainability
simétrica
without a
entre lo que
symmetric
tomamos
reciprocity
y lo que
between
regresamos.
what we take and what we give back.
Regresando a servicios ecosistémicos,
Now let's talk about the
tenemos servicios
ecosystemic
de
services.
support
We also have support
un
services.
ejemplo
Let me
es
give
el
you an
AMA,
example. The
la parte
habitat.
baja de San
The
Miguel de
High
Allende
Laja
incluso
and San Miguel de Allende,
después de cruzar el río
well,
Grande, el
after
Alto Laja es
crossing
uno de los
the
principales
river, well, Alto Laja is one of the
aves
main
migratorias
areas
después de cruzar
for
el río Grande.
migratory
Pero
birds.
también debido al incremento en temperatura,
But
ahora el
temperatures
Alto Laja
have
está siendo
increased.
más
Now
cálido
this
por
region
el
has become the habitat of mosquitoes,
dengue. El
and
Alto
these
Laja,
mosquitoes
según las
carry
estadísticas del
dengue.
2017, tenía
According
el
to the
índice de
Health
dengue más alto a
Institute,
nivel nacional.
we had the second level of dengue in the
En
country.
términos de servicios
Now, when it comes
antropogénicos, por
to
ejemplo, los
anthropogenic
espacios,
services, for
que
instance, the
están
spaces,
proveyendo las convivencias, los espacios donde podemos encontrarnos
the
con
spaces
una novia, una escuela,
where
un
we
comedor,
meet
el servicio
with
de
friends,
ambiental,
with our
este
boyfriends
espacio
or
social
girlfriends.
está proveyendo
These social
espacios
spaces
necesarios para tener convivencia.
are used
En
for
términos de gente,
entertainment purposes.
creo
In
que
terms of
lo mencioné en el
population, well,
programa, el
I didn't
proyecto
mention this. The
que nos
project
mencionaba
that I
de Agenda
operate is
Ambiental,
called
cuando hablamos de gente
Watersheds People and Climate
sujetos o
Change
poblaciones
Project.
a cargo
Well,
del
when we talk
programa
about the
de
people,
Desarrollo
well, then
Nacional de México,
the national population of
incluso
Mexico
población
and the population of
internacional,
Guanajuato,
el rango de edad
well,
tiene
and
un
the
mayor
age range
porcentaje de
that
población
takes
de
the greatest
10 a
percentage
14
goes
años.
from 10 to 14 years of
Cuando
age.
reflexionamos
When
sobre
we
la
think
demografía
about
de Pau y su generación,
Pau
cuando ellos
and
lleguen a
her
nuestra edad de 50
generation,
años,
when they are my
va a haber
age,
9
50
mil
years,
millones
we're
de
going to
personas
have
en el planeta,
9 billion people in the planet.
habitando el mismo
9
espacio
billion
de
occupying
1,20
the same
kilómetros
space, the
cuadrados,
same 390 square kilometers, and they're going to be using the same amount
Cuando
of
hablamos de
water, the
agua,
same space.
como mencionó
When we talk
la maestra Graciela,
about
aquí en el
water
Alto Laja,
in
debido
the
a
Alto
prácticas
Laja, because
agropecuarias
of farming
desde el
practices
fundamento,
ever since
ha
the
habido una
40s, we have
extracción
had
no vigilado, no regulado
and so
de aguas
an
subterráneas,
exploitation of
lo que ha
underground
sucedido
waters
a través de
without
extracción
surveillance.
hemos
And because
bajado
of this
el
exploitation,
nivel
we have
del
had
laguito
a
y
reduction
estamos
of the
extrayendo agua
watershed, and we are
proveniente
extracting
de esta
water that
vida
is
fósil.
very old, fossil
Vemos la
water.
mancha urbana, está
Let's
Miguel
look
de
at
Allende, y empezamos a
the
ir
city
a la
area of
derecha
San
hacia
Miguel
el
de Allende.
oriente,
If we go to
hacia la
the
salida de
west,
Querétaro.
to the
Las últimas autoridades
highway to
que están
Querétaro,
aquí en la
well,
mano
the last
izquierda,
communities
Puerto
that
de
you
Nieto,
can see on the
Guanajuatito,
left, Guanajuatito and Puerto de Nieto.
en enero
In
de este
January
año
this year,
eh, descubrimos una
we
contaminación de
discovered
agua en el pozo de Guanajuato.
contamination
El
of the
recibo
water
no
well
hubo
at
una
San
verificación de
Juanahuatito.
ninguna otra fuente,
There was no
pero
verification
empezamos a
of
darnos
any other
cuenta que
source,
el agua
but we
estaba muy
realized
arriba
that the
de lo que
water
decía
was
la norma mexicana
far
y la Organización
above
Mundial de Salud
the
respecto
recommendations
de
of
arsénico.
the World Health
Hace
Organization
también
when it
recibimos
comes
una
to the contents
verificación
of
de la Universidad
arsenic.
de Texas,
We received some studies from the University of
el
Texas,
contenido de
and
esta
it
agua
says
en
that the content
arsenico
of that
es
water, the
7
arsenic
veces
content,
más
is
arriba
7 times
de lo permitido
higher
también en
than
sangre
that
de los
allowed by the World
adultos
Health
respecto a
Organization,
la norma
three
mexicana.
times higher than the one
Estamos
allowed
viendo
by
el nivel
the
5
Mexican
FPS,
norm.
el
In the
agua
basin,
donde tiene mayor
we are seeing
calidad están en las faldas de los
that
volcanes que están
the water with the best
alrededor de este
quality
mapa.
is in the lower areas
Pero
of this map.
también en esta planicie estamos
But
viendo un
on this
cambio de uso
flat,
de
we're
suelo
also
también sin
seeing
precedentes.
a change of
Cuando
use,
cubrimos, cuando cubrimos
never seen before.
una superficie con concreto
When we
vegetal,
cover a
eso
surface
significa
with
que hay
concrete,
menos agua que
that
está llegando al
implies
suelo, menos
that
agua
less
está
water
filtrando del
comes
manto
into the soil,
y hay
less water
más
comes
agua
into the
entrando a los
watershed.
escurrimientos. Otro servicio ecosistémico
Another
es un servicio
ecosystemic
de
service
regulación.
is the regulation service.
Cuando tenemos un
When
pastizal,
we
un
have
monte, pues,
the wild,
esa superficie, esa
well, that
cobertura
surface,
vegetal
that
está
surface
modificando
with
no
vegetation
solamente el
is
golpe de las
buffering
ondas
not
de viento, la
only
velocidad de gravedad para llegar al suelo,
the water
sino
drops,
está mitigando
it
la
is also
velocidad de
reducing
ese agua
the
cuando
velocity
escurre
of
por la
water
superficie.
when it goes
Si vemos esta
on the
superficie de
slopes.
390 kilómetros
If we look
cuadrados
at this surface
y
of
tomamos el
390
volcán
square
Picacho en
kilometers
el
and we
centro
take
a la mano
the
izquierda,
Picachos volcano,
mapeada
the one that you can see on the right in
Ajá.
brown,
Si tomamos
if we
desde
take the area, and I'm sorry, without a microphone translation is not possible.
Picacho, Táncora, El Macho, La Marga, 390 kilómetros cuadrados. Todas estas líneas azules son escurrimientos. Si tomamos desde aquí para acá, podemos ver que más del 75% de los escurrimientos de esta superficie están acumulándose a la zona urbana de San Miguel. Cuando cubrimos la superficie con techos de concreto, ¿qué es lo que pasa? El agua queda estancada y cuando hay un leve pendiente, el agua empieza a escurrir. Lo que estábamos observando hace una semana y media, bajando en la calle de San Francisco, bajando en la calle de Correo, era un tsunami. La cantidad de lluvia que cayó no fue fuera de lo normal. Lo que sí está fuera de lo normal es que una enorme superficie de este territorio se está siendo cubierto con concreto y techo.
I'm sorry. Now I understand. It's for translation purposes. I was very comfortable. Well, if you can hear me, I'm going to stay here.
Entonces, lo que
So,
estamos viendo
this is
es
what we see.
un cambio de uso de suelo. Estamos
The
viendo que
use of
reforma
the
parte de un suelo
soil
jamás visto por
is
ojos humanos.
changing, the use of the land.
Es importante
And this has never
reconocer
been seen before. We've got to
que
acknowledge this.
población que viene en camino no lo podemos frenar,
We cannot stop a population from coming to the
pero
area,
tenemos que empezar a
but we
ver
need to start thinking
cómo
about
podemos
different
reflexionar un
solutions.
poco sobre cómo
We
estamos
need to see
modificando la
how we are
estructura de las
modifying
cuencas,
the structure
porque
of
no
the
hay que
basin,
estar dejando de
because the
funcionar
basin is
a
stop
favor
is no
de
longer
nuestros
working for the
está
benefit
provocando
of
una serie
communities.
de
Now the
condiciones que aquí
basin is
llamamos bajas
creating a number of
que no
conditions, especially
favorecen
in the
el
lower
desarrollo de
areas.
la organización.
And because of this, we are not
Jardín de
promoting
Allende,
organized
lugar que va todo el
societies.
mundo a visitar, tenemos médicos
Yes, San Miguel
viajando
de
en
Allende
San
is a very
Miguel,
nice place. Many people come to San Miguel.
generando trabajo, generando empleo,
And we are generating
pero
employment.
también si hay un evento
But
como el que tuvimos en
if there is an
1998,
event like that of
cuando hubo un
1988,
sistema,
when we had
meteorológico bastante intenso,
a very intense
se
weather event,
desbordó un bordo aquí arriba
we had
en la microcuenca de Puerto de
the
Hierro,
overflow
y
of
en esa
one
agua
body of water
la
in Campo de
tambulina
Nieto. The
empezó
water
en
came
Tambola,
flowing
se
into the Tambula
revienta y
basin,
aquí viene
and
otro
we
tsunami de
had
agua,
another
incluso reduciendo
tsunami
el
of
valor del agua.
water that
Piensen que ya
affected
los centros son
the
estaciones de
San
agua.
Guadalupe, the Guadalupe
Si pasa
colonia.
de nuevo,
If this happens
esa
again,
situación, la cantidad, el volumen y la velocidad de agua que va a
the
llegar al
speed
centro del
of the
puerto
water
va a ser imparable.
reaching the city center is
Para
going to be very,
reconstruir,
very high.
para reconstruir
In
esta área
order
y
to
agarrar
solve the
recursos
problem, we
no
need
se
to
acabó
use
dejando
resources
vulnerables
from any
las
place.
comunidades aledañas.
But this is putting
Fue en
neighboring
junio, en el
communities in a
primer
vulnerable
campus meeting que
situation.
tuvimos,
In June, we
de
had
pago,
heavy rains,
la
and
comunidad de
because of
Fajardo de
that, the
Tábora,
Fajardo de Tambula community, right here,
donde hay cuatro sufrimientos que bajan por esa
we
comunidad,
have four flowing areas going
en
through
3
that
días de
community.
agua,
In 3 days of rain,
estos cuatro descubrimientos
these
se
four
convergieron,
pathways
se juntaron y
came
formaron un
together
arroyo
and they
que era
formed
igual al
a
anchor del
river,
río San
just
Marcos,
like the San Marcos River
dejando
in
la
size.
comunidad
And the
incomunicada.
community was
Aquí
out
pasa la
of
cabecera de San
communication.
Marcos,
We
así
have
está
the
la
root,
clínica
we have the
donde las
root here,
personas de
and we
Guadalupe
have
van,
the
donde viven a
clinic
Fajardo,
here.
donde viven de Boxas, 4
And this
personas viven a
clinic
Fajardo, no
services
podían
a
llegar
number of communities, and people were
por
not able to
cemento
reach the
y por
clinic
se
because of
modifica
this flooding
la
process.
estructura de
So,
la cuenca
when we modify the
subsistía,
structure of the basin,
también
the
los
function
efectos.
of the basin is affected, and that affects us as well.
Cuando hablamos de cambio climático,
When we talk about climate change,
me queda a veces sin palabras,
well, sometimes I am left
porque no
speechless
sé cómo
because
aterrizar un
I don't
concepto
know how to explain the
que
concept.
está poniendo
A
el riesgo
concept
del futuro
that is putting
de nosotros.
the future of younger
Este
people
tema
at risk.
me ha provocado primero durante los últimos 23
For the
años
last 23 years, this
analizar y
topic
indagar,
has
tener
made
distancia,
me
mayor distancia de
work,
mi esposa y yo, no por
has
intención,
put some distance between my wife and myself, and my wife is here, I have to
pero
say.
cuando vemos cambio
But when
climático
we talk about
actuando
climate
en
change,
un contexto
we
local,
have to talk about
debemos
the
empezar a
impact of
sentir los efectos.
climate change in
Por
local
ejemplo,
regions.
nosotros en la Sierra Gorda de
For instance,
Quetzala
in La Sierra
tenemos este
Gorda,
hilo
we
parador que va del
have a
mesófilo de
corridor
Iguala desde
of
Tamaulipas,
mesophotic
desde
forest
el estado
that
de
comes all the
Tamaulipas,
way
donde
from
hay un proyecto de
Tamaulipas.
fracking en nuestro
And there is a
ecosistema,
fracking
uno de los más
project in
prolíferos del
the
estado de Puebla,
mountains of
bosque
San,
mesófilo donde
San Luis
debería estar
Potosí.
cayendo más de 1 metro
And we
de
should
agua
have
anual, ha
rain
llovido
of
3
one
veces,
meter of rain,
ha caído
and it
más
has
agua que
been
el río
raining
UNAM
three
en la
times
cuenca de
that.
Potosí.
It has been raining more than in the Potosí and the
¿Cómo
Huasteca.
enfrentamos esta
How
situación?
do we face
En los
these
últimos 2
situations?
años y medio
Over the last 2 years and a half, we have set up a strategy
que tiene 5 pasos.
with 5 steps.
Primer paso,
Number one,
que ampliar la población
we
de
have
participando
to
en
have
acciones
we need to have more participation of the population in local strategies.
expresiones de cambio climático
We need to have the inclusion of climate change from the perspective of the region, from the basin, and this has to be part of a system of life. When I say system of life, well, I can talk about the
podemos hablar de simplemente qué es lo que hacemos
biosocial metabolism, all the things that we do on an everyday basis. What do we do every morning? What is the first thing that we do every morning? We make a decision to wake up or not,
segundo
to get up
empezamos
or
a
not.
tomar de
Number two,
recursos naturales
we start using natural resources. Water. We go to the toilet, we pee,
la cara la boca
we wash our face, and we drink water.
vamos a la cocina
We go to the kitchen
otra llave que el
and we open the tap, and this implies distribution. We boil the water, we transform the water, we use water for coffee making.
regresamos al baño
We go to the toilet, we pee again, and we have contamination throughout this process. Every day we go through this process. Every day we are part of this metabolic process.
cuando hablamos del sistema de
When we talk about the system of life
perspectiva de cuenca
from the perspective of the basin,
qué es lo que
we
hacemos
need to define what we do locally and how we do that, where we do that,
permite hacer lo que hacemos
and we've got to acknowledge that the territory is allowing us to do that.
viene una sequía viene
If there is a drought, if there is a flooding,
de repente este evento meteorológico
well, this weather event is going to have an impact on the things that we do. We're not going to have water,
el agua está contaminada
or the water might be contaminated,
no hay cultivo
or maybe we don't have farming production, or maybe we don't have food production. And what happens with the prices when there is not enough food? Well, the prices skyrocket. In these communities, we have a migration process. What do people do? They work in construction mainly. Well, construction is okay, but it implies sand, gravel, water. Where do these come from? From the Alto Laja. And the water comes from here. This urban expansion is becoming very expensive, and someone will have to pay. With what resources? Number two, we want to integrate these concepts as part of the school syllabus. We want to increase the options for people. We want to give them a general background so they can make the right decision. What's more convenient for them? Number three, we need to empower them so they can choose what they want. They're going to have information and they're going to have the right to pick, to choose. And this implies freedom. Number three, to use the spaces or to take over the spaces, the decision-making spaces. We're participating in public consultations for the urban development community project. There is an open consultation, and this consultation should develop a document that will define the future of the San Miguel de Allende municipality. We are talking about water, we are talking about mining. My dear brothers and sisters, we have an open pit at La Margara. Currently we have that, and it has not been authorized, but it's there, and they want to expand their operations. We need to participate in meetings, we need to participate in the different committees. Young people need to have information so they can speak up. so they can participate. Number four, to use the best practices. We have very good practices for water collection, for food production, for the rehabilitation of the soil. We don't have to reinvent anything. We know what works.
Tenemos bioorgánica, un rancho demostrativo que está demostrando
We have a ranch where we have approved these best practices. We have the Gaia ranch where we are also teaching these best practices. We know what to do. We have the experience. We have the experience of CEDESA. We know what works and what doesn't. Number five, the creation of support networks. We are here because of the work of a very important network in San Miguel de Allende. We don't only have members of the civil society. And now I would like to talk about the government, the three levels of government. There are some people that we can save in those positions. Leticia's sister, my sister, Marta, she has been working at the Training Center for Sustainable Development for 2 decades. The Secadesu is part of Semarnat, and that was the institutional bridge between Semarnat and SEP, the Ministry of Education, but this was broken by Peña Nieto. He brought together 75 people to work throughout the country for the generation of a training material. But from 75, he reduced the number to 7. Sakadesu has a lot of information when it comes to environmental education. Support network. We also have Mayra with us and Carmen Arroyo, my wife. They are part of a system called self-finance communities. They are trying to find ways of increasing the capacity and the power of a group of people by means of saving and lending with an interest rate that they decide themselves. And Khalil is saying that I have run out of time, so thank you very much. That's what I have to say. Thank you, Henry. Now you're not going to have 5 minutes because we want to have time for the Q&A session. So I am going to give the floor to the members of the panel. Would you like to add something to the presentations that you have witnessed? And remember that we are going to be picking your cards. If you don't have your questions ready, please put them on writing. Someone on this side and Carlos on the other side will pick the cards. We are going to collect them and then we are going to try and answer these questions. So you have a couple of minutes for some final remarks. What you are doing in San Miguel right now is very important. As Henry was saying, we need to create networks, as many as we can. However, these networks need to help us solve the problems because we can have many sessions like this one, but we need to be organized in networks in order to promote the solutions of problems. Otherwise, everything is going to be emptiness. I would say that this is one of the biggest needs that we have as a basin. We need to be organized in order to face all these problems. We didn't talk about fracking, but fracking is another very serious problem that we might encounter anytime now. So we need to have a proposal. We need to be organized in order to face all these problems. The problems that Leticia and Henry mentioned, the problems that I mentioned myself. We need to organize citizens because we are sure about something. And this is something that Leticia said.
nosotros podemos
It is
hacer
only by means of the grassroots that we can have deep transformations. We are talking about a fourth transformation, but transformations only come from the basis, from the grassroots.
Probablemente podemos utilizar algunos aspectos importantes
Obviously, we are going to use information coming from the top levels, but we need to build this fourth transformation that people are talking about.
las comunidades
We are
rurales
talking about
generan
rural communities, we are
condiciones
talking about
de
farming
equilibrio
communities,
entre
indigenous
lugares
communities, urban communities,
que
villages.
territorialmente
We are the
accesibles
ones that
y
have
otras
the
que
solution to
tengan
all these
que ser
the problems that we have been mentioning throughout the session.
lo social.
We
Ese es un
are the
punto que
subject
tiene que
matter,
actuar
we are the social
colectivamente
subject matter, and we
para
need
frenar
to
el
work as a
progreso.
collectivity in order to stop the industry, in order to
Los
stop
grandes
the
corporaciones
big industrial parks that are
abandonamos
being
nuestro
forecasted and
territorio.
they are going to damage our region.
Hoy
Allow me to finish with
podemos
this.
decir que el agua de la lluvia, todo el
We
desequilibrio
can say
que
that
se llena de las
rainwater is clean,
empresas que
but
vienen a contaminar,
if companies
también
come to the region to contaminate,
tenemos
we can forget
consecuencias
about
fuertes que
though
son
that water that we collect, water that we can actually use.
a esa
Let's
calidad
say
de agua.
goodbye to the quality of
Entonces
water from the
sería
rain.
más
Let's say
difícil el problema
then the situation
de
is going to
agua.
be more
Muchas gracias.
difficult. Thank you very much.
Sí, rápido, sin
Very quickly.
aparte ya en macro. Yo creo que el tema ambiental, pues desde la Ciudad de México uno ve los problemas de la
In
biodiversidad,
Mexico City, we have
pero
many
los
problems,
problemas nacionales, los problemas
and we also have national problems.
materiales. Pero creo que con este tema de la cuarta
When it comes
transformación,
to the fourth
con el resultado de
transformation,
las elecciones habló muy claramente
well, we can see
Elena Burns hablando en su
we
reacción
have the
de
reaction of Elena
se
Burse.
busca
Well, we
voluntariamente
have the willingness to change, and this
generando
was shown by the
impacto
elections.
ambiental, el futuro de la vida de estos
The future
chicos de México, de mexicanos en
of
México, no
children
se toma todavía en cuenta. Entonces, creo que
is
esa
not
es
being
nuestra
taken into
tarea,
consideration.
insistir en las propuestas
And we need
importantes
to
de los
continue
ambientales.
working
Yo no creo
on
que
these
sea
proposals,
el país
the
que
environmental
supere las
proposals.
plantas
I don't think the
de
country needs
ecosistema,
three
de
additional
erradicación
fertilizing
extrema
plants.
de zonas muertas en los cuerpos de
We
agua
don't need to
y
have
en las costas
more barren
por
soil
contaminación por
just
fertilizantes, por
because
cambio en el
of
balance de los
contamination, just
bosques
because of
y de
the
los
change
ríos,
of
porque
ratio
todo
of
de
chemical
alguna
elements.
territorio energético genera zonas muertas por
This creates barren
imbalance
areas because of this
¿no te
lack
parece que
of
no se
balance in
puede
the
seguir
ratio of
utilizando este tema
elements.
e incluso a la minería y la exploración del
And we
base?
cannot
No, porque lo que va,
accept
a lo que va a haber
the
es más
exploration
minería
of
a
new
fondo.
ores.
Puede
I
ser
don't think we have new ores.
el
We are
plan
going to
director
have
nacional,
many open pits.
perdón,
I
no
don't
plan
think
director
this needs to be a priority
yo
for the
creo que
country.
también el tema de reforestaciones masivas,
Reforestation
poniéndose en
needs
miles de
to
millones
be
de
massive.
hectáreas.
We're talking about thousands
No es un
of
tema
hectares.
de una transformación con sustentabilidad, ¿verdad?
I don't think this is to be
Mucho de esto tiene que ver con
achieved
falta
with
de
sustainability.
atención
This is because of lack of attention to
falta de
environmental
responsabilidad
issues. And I think what
y hay que
Henry
buscar
said
que no
was
sea
very important. That we have to leverage this sustainability issue at a
que
regional
sea
level, but this is something that we have to do
decirnos
ourselves.
de otra forma, o sea,
We have to say no to proposals that are not going
cuando
to
estamos
give us a benefit. We have
identificando
this idea of having new three refineries. No, that's not what we have to do.
razones ambientales de la
Because
matriz
of environmental reasons, we have to think of different matrices,
también en
not
escala
only
nacional
hydrocarbons,
las
in a
industrias
small scale. In a small
deben
scale,
tener marcos de agua
because we don't want to have the situation that we have in Tehuantepec.
ahorita entendió que se llamó petróleo.
People say that the wind is the new oil.
Que limpiar
We need to have a clean energy, yes, but we need to get rid of these policies that take the land away from people.
constantemente.
We need to continuously work on this.
Y bueno, muchas gracias. Pues aquí tenemos ya mucha
Thank
información.
you very much. As you can see, we have a lot of information. We are going to have the videos on our website. At the end, we are going to give you the link. We are recording the conferences. And we have to remember that this is the first of a number of sessions. Not all of them will be conferences. In some cases, we'll need to have workshops because in some cases we need hands-on practice. So on the website, we are going to be giving you information about the following events. We have cities, forests, biodiversity, farming, the different proposals. They are included in the agenda. And now we're going to continue with the Q&A session. And Alberto has the questions, it seems. I only want to remind you, and this is a question for you. Do you know about this consultation to participate in this type of development? If you knew, and if you know about the website, if you know about this consultation, please raise your hand. Only two people. Okay. So this is what's happening in San Miguel. We don't have information because we are not getting the information or because we are not in contact with the people uh, giving the information out. As Henry mentioned it is very important to collaborate and to invite others to collaborate. So during the tables, Henry is going to give us the information that is necessary to be part of the consultation process so we can participate with our opinion, so we can speak up. We are not experts, but we are citizens. Now let's continue with the questions. I am going to read three questions. We only have three questions. If we don't have time to answer them all, well, we'll try to give you an answer in writing. I have to tell you something. We already have a website, educacionyMediosColaborativos.org. Its purpose is to be a space for communication. We are going to have different communication fora. We are going to have news about the region. We're going to try to educate people by means of this media. We are going to give information about government bills, information that you need to know. Obviously, the purpose of this is to promote your participation, your engagement. Now, allow me to read the questions. What are the challenges and opportunities that you find when it comes to engaging young people in the use of resources? Over the last 2 years and a half, we have been working with three education institutions, SABES, CEBETIS, and the CECITEC. And we have been trying to introduce climate change issues in their syllabus.
experimentar cambio climático.
We have been trying to promote the climate change issue from the perspective of the basin as a system of life, and this has to be part of the subjects that the students study. We have to study the history of the basin, the characteristics of the population in the past. In the case of mathematics, we try to calculate the volume of water coming into the basin by means of the flowing paths. In the case of water collection, we have students in three systems, in three institutions.
Dentro de estos temas tenemos una representación estudiantil de
So
más
we
de
have a
2.500 alumnos.
representation of more than 3,500 students.
¿Cómo calcular
And
la
now
superficie
these
de sus
students
techos?
know how to
Podemos con
calculate the
información
area
proveniente
of the
de
roofs.
comisiones
And
estatales
using
de
information from the
riego
National Commission
superficial
of Waters,
estar siendo
they
estudiado.
understand what is the potential for
Todo
water
joven
collection that they have.
entiende cómo captar
Young
agua,
people need to
porque
know how to
es
collect
ahora
water.
dentro del plan de gobierno a nivel municipal prioridad.
This is one of the priorities of the municipality government.
No es ciencia nuclear, lo
This
que
is not
necesito se
rocket
necesita es una
science.
voluntad
We only need
institucional.
the willingness
Aquí
of
hay
institutions.
representantes
We
del
have
Instituto de la
representatives
Sociedad
of the CECITEC in this
qué es
room.
lo que podemos pedirle a la sociedad, más apoyo de
What
las
do we
madres y
need from the
padres,
society? Well,
más
more support from
artistas y
mothers
jóvenes
and
tengan
fathers, more scholarships so young people
formaciones
can
de
have
posgrado.
an open gate
Estamos
to
logrando
further
tratar
education
a través
at a
de
state
una
level by
iniciativa
means of a document written by Karen
y la
Zúñiga.
propuesta.
Bueno, para complementar esta pregunta de los jóvenes,
Now, talking
sí,
about
para
young
nosotros en
people.
CEDESA hoy
At
atendemos a los
CEDESA,
jóvenes y a los
we
niños
work
desde
with
hace más de
children
5
and
años.
young people, and this is a
Bueno,
challenge
desde hace algunos años.
for some years
En la
now.
agenda de CEDESA ha habido siempre un eje transversal que es el del trabajo con jóvenes.
We have
Por
included
eso
the
se
work
trata de un
with
enfoque
young
integral,
people. That's why we have
porque
this
si no
type of
formamos
continuous
a las
work.
generaciones futuras, el
If
proceso
we
puede
do not
acabarse.
train future
Entonces,
generations,
a mí
the
me tocó empezar ya desde muy
processes
joven
might
a
come to an
formar
end.
una nueva generación
I was in charge of
que
training a
continúe
new
a través
generation,
de
a
CEDESA,
new generation
porque
that
como
will
mencionaba
continue
Leticia,
with the work of CEDESA because CEDESA is
también
not going
tenemos
to
compañeros
end with me.
coordinadores que
I
están
have
todos los
some
días con los
colleagues
jóvenes,
that work
pero
with me
todos
that
estos
follow up
jóvenes,
on this process.
yo creo que los jóvenes
They are
tienen
young,
energía,
and young people have a
tienen
lot of
energía,
stamina.
a veces se ven como si estuvieran
Though
muertos.
sometimes we think they don't, because sometimes they look like they're
Los
dead.
jóvenes
Why?
no
Because
tienen ningún proyecto definido,
young people don't have
ninguna
a project,
responsabilidad.
a live project. They don't
Entonces,
have
ese es
any
su futuro.
security but the
Esa es
mobile
la
phone.
realidad.
The mobile phone is their exit
Es
route.
una parte de su vida.
Yeah, I would say
Entonces,
it's their exit route.
no, también de todos, ¿verdad? Pero sí, a mí me preocupa mucho cuando llego a las comunidades
When I come to
y veo que
communities,
los jóvenes, cero aproximados,
I look at young people leaving the school,
necesitan vivir sin energía, sin vida,
and
sin
they
luz, sin
seem
nada.
not to have any
Entonces,
energy. They
eso es un
only
reto
look
para
at their
nosotros
mobile
y
phone.
sí
So this is
pienso
a big challenge
que
for
sí
us.
tienen, yo creo que nosotros los adultos
I think
nos
that
olvidamos, ¿verdad?
adults
Cuando
have
niños
forgotten about
tenemos
young
que
people, children.
hacer cambios en sentido común, de trabajar
Young
su
people
proyecto de
are
vida.
willing
Nosotros
to
ya
work
nacimos
on
sin
their
energía,
life
sin
project.
ilusionarnos, sin trabajar, sin
And we
sentir.
have to
Cuando ellos
promote these
empiezan a
projects
entender
that they have when they understand
lo que vamos descubriendo con ellos como proyecto de vida,
their
ellos empiezan a decir,
project
bueno,
in life, they
bueno,
start
hemos
engaging
trabajado ya
in the
con
process.
varias escuelas,
We have been working with a number of
de
schools
acá,
in San Luis de la Paz
sobre todo también de La Paz, poder ayudar
and in some
formando
rural
escuelas
communities.
multidisciplinarias y formando desde
And we
niños
have been talking
líderes
about this
multidisciplinarios.
issue, an issue
Pero
that is
también hay, es
significant for the
significativo que
community.
está despertando
And there is a
mucho
project that
el,
is
a los jóvenes
creating
esa
interest
actividad
amongst
involucrando a
youngsters.
jóvenes
The bee
y
production,
niños,
production of bees and
porque tenemos
honey production.
a
We are
la vez
engaging
trabajamos
children and young people
para
because if
producir medicamentos,
we promote
también
this
estamos
pollinization
para
process, we are
reducir
also giving, well, we are
también
we're promoting the production of bee, but we are also giving youngsters a way of living. And they have to work with many people in their communities. But yes, this is a big challenge. It is a big challenge to focus on young people, to present alternatives for their engagement so they become the citizens of the future. There's another question.
¿Qué puedo hacer para impulsar
What can I do in order to promote changes in the legislation?
sobre nuestro entorno, recursos naturales e industria pueden
Decisions
ayudar
about
a tomar
our
decisiones
region
urbanistas?
are
¿Cómo pueden
based
ustedes
on a capital
contribuir
system.
desde la
How
sociedad
can
civil en general
society
para que el
participate
bienestar
in the
individual y
decision
colectivo
making
sean tomados en
so
consideración?
the well-being of the community is taken into consideration?
Sí, yo creo que, bueno, en el mundo y particularmente en México, en América Latina, tenemos un
In
historial
the world
de
and in Latin America, specifically in Mexico, we have this history of authoritarian
por
governments.
ejemplo, el CRT en los Estados Unidos, yo me acuerdo hace muchos años
I remember
cuando yo estaba en la Universidad de Indiana
when I
habíamos
was
conseguido un
at
recurso
Indiana's
para,
university,
logramos conseguir un recurso
we got
para
some
que todos los
resources
jóvenes mexicanos estudiaran
so we
ese
could
derecho.
invite Mexican
Y
students
sucedió
to
lo del
Bloomington.
ataque a las Torres
That's
Gemelas
when
y
we
todo esto.
had
Entonces,
the World Trade
a
Center
los
attack.
jóvenes que iban a ir,
Those
estudiantes
young
mexicanos,
people that were going to
tuvieron todos
go
los
to
problemas del mundo para que
the
les dieran.
university
O sea, estaban esperando que
faced
regresaran
many
y
problems
les daban
to
una beca
get
para eso.
their visas.
Y le hablé a Ostrom en
So I
Indiana
talked to
y me
Ostrom,
dijo, bueno,
Indiana,
voy a hablar con
and
mi
and he
senador
said, "Well, I am going to talk to my congressman." And I said, "Wow, he must be
y me
important."
dijo, no, pero lo pago por tus impuestos
And he
y lo
said, "No,
tengo
I don't know the
porque se lo
congressman,
hacen
but
por
he
derechos y
pays
por
he
parte de la
he's
ley.
paid
Dice,
with
aquí
my
está tu
taxes, so I
teléfono,
have the right
o si prefieren te presto el teléfono
to
y
be
yo me pongo de
listened
acuerdo y
to.
lo hago
He
por
has
ti,
to
¿no? Y
be
no me está
my point of view
beneficiando.
has to be taken into consideration.
Yo hubiera hecho.
That's something that we don't have
Preferible
in Mexico. We don't have
que,
this type of custom.
demandar en
We
ese
don't have
sentido,
this
pero
custom of
por lo menos
demanding our
para empezar, en
congressmen.
términos locales, hay que exigir
At a local
que sean
level, we
públicos
need to
y que sean
demand and we
reciprocados.
need
Yo no
to
sé eso,
put pressure
pero
on governments
el Ejecutivo, los gobiernos de los estados no asuman decisiones
because it
hasta que
is
se
not
tengan
for
las
governments to make
decisiones
decisions
perfectas. Existe
without taking
en la
into consideration
Constitución de
the
este país
citizens. In the constitution of the country,
instrumentos
there
legales
are legal
que
instruments
los
that we do
mexicanos
not
no le
know,
echamos mano.
so we don't use them.
El tema de los
That's
abogados,
why I
de los
think
jóvenes abogados,
environmental
son
lawyers
tan
are going to
necesarios.
become a very important
La
resource.
medicina minera o el fracking o una
In the
cosa
case
así
of
de verdad,
fracking or mining or
comunidades
water
indígenas, la
concessions,
gente que vive en comunidades
indigenous
tiene
communities
derecho a
have the right
y al
of
proceso
organizing a
de ser
consultation
informado. Si no
and
les
they
dan
have the
nada,
right to
son
receiving
instrumentos que hay que
information.
desarrollar, pero
These are
para que
instruments
puede
that
uno
we need to
avanzar y
develop.
revertir
These are
este tipo de
instruments that we
procesos
can use in order to stop
están
these
siendo
type of
violadas
processes
no
coming
tenemos
from above, from top
capacidad legal.
levels.
Entonces yo creo que es cuestión de
So I
empezar
think
por la organización local, porque el proceso
we
local en
need
este país
we need to
no
start
es
with a local
suficiente
congress. But in this country, many decisions are made in the federal congress without taking into consideration
en los estados. Yo creo
the
que hay que
states.
empezar a exigir por
So
ahí
we need to start
para que se
demanding.
legisle y se lleve a una
It is incredible
a construcción
that
del
we have
aeropuerto
a
de
consultation for the construction of the new airport, but we don't have a consultation for the use of fracking or mining techniques in Mexico.
la minería submarina, o sea,
People are promoting
que
underwater mining.
Peña haya decretado cientos de miles de
Peña
hectáreas de
issued
reservas marinas
or
en México,
declared many hectares of the ocean as protected. What happens? What is going to happen if we are going to have underwater mining? This is going to have an impact on us, on our children, and we have to demand the right to consultation. And we have to demand the right to information, information about the issues that have an impact on the future.
Yo creo que aquí nos falta mucho terreno por
I think
habitar.
we need, or we have a long way ahead of us. We need to organize ourselves because we don't have this type of practice when it comes to the water issue. I invite you to visit the Agua para Todos, Agua para la Vida website. Organizing people is not easy. Reaching agreements is not easy. There is a bill for the water issue, and this will be negotiated. But this is the result of a longer process because at the end of the day, we want to have an impact on the water policy.
Bueno, nosotros desde un poquito de cerveza y con algunas organizaciones de máster, sí creemos
At
que es
CEDESA
momento
and
de
at some grassroots organizations, we do believe it is high time we started intervening or participating, especially taking into consideration the water problem that we already know of, the health problems that have resulted because of these water problems, because of the over-exploitation of the watersheds. We know the consequences, so we are thinking that this is the right time to do something.
nosotros creemos que habría que crear como colectivos para empezar
We need to create organizations in order to create a system to solve the problem, but we also need to put proposals forth, proposals about the experiences that we are implementing, live alternatives for people.
es una experiencia que vamos a iniciar,
So this is an experience
pero
that
no
we are
puede
going to
tardar
start.
mucho porque los procesos
It is going to
son,
take some time
son
because
lentos
processes
y cansados,
are slow moving
a
and
veces,
demanding in some
pero
instances.
sí creemos que
But we
si
do
nosotros
believe
como
that
sociedad civil organizada no empezamos a hacer estas propuestas,
if we
nadie
don't
las va a
start
hacer.
working on these proposals
Entonces,
as
para
civil
nosotros es
organizations,
momento
no
de
one is going to do this.
organizarnos.
So this is the possibility that we have identified. Now talking about the Coordinadora Agua para Todos, well, the Coordinadora brings together different organizations from the states and from the municipalities. And this coordinadora has stopped three bills that have an impact on water because the water has been acknowledged as a right ever since the year 2012. The Constitution acknowledges these, and the Constitution acknowledges that the law needs to be changed. For 3 or 4 years, Peña's administration promoted bills that go against the water problem. The Corenfell project, for instance, the proposal was that the quality, the water quality study, no, they promoted the idea that universities needed to have the permission from the government in order to analyze the quality of water. Dr. Narro from the National University and other principals expressed their opposition against this Corenfell project. The Coordinadora Agua para Todos stopped this bill 3 times. The fourth time was stopped by the Pope. That was when the Pope was in Mexico, and I think they didn't want to have this type of problems whilst the Pope was in the country. Anyways, I know Pedro is very concerned about this struggle, this legal struggle and social struggle. But taking into consideration the experience from the last few months, I have to say that something that is significant is the relationship with mass media, with the press, with the television, with radio. At Televisa, we participated in an interview We also participated with Televisión Azteca. I think this is something very important. Sometimes your allies are in those places that you never think of. So we have to start working with mass media in order to promote these initiatives. I know you're not going to invite me next time.
A nivel municipal
And at a municipal level, we have the participation of a Protección Civil.
de riesgo. Hay una ley
There is a
federal
general law
que
for
obliga
Protección Civil
municipios
that
a crear
forces
una
municipalities
pertinent
to
de
generate a
riesgos
map
que
of the
existen
risks
a nivel
that
municipal.
exist in the municipality.
Si se consulta, bueno, uno de los árboles de riesgo, perdón,
One
es
of the risk
el mapa
areas
de inundaciones,
is
donde a nivel
the
municipal se
flooding
demuestra
map.
donde hay un
At a municipal
acumulamiento de
level,
agua
we
que
show where
puede
we might
necesitar
have
ser utilizado
water
en
accumulations
algún riesgo
that might represent a
por
risk
inundación.
during the rainy
Protección Civil
season.
tiene la
Protección
autorización
Civil also
de
has the
parar
authorization to stop
cualquier desarrollo
any
si
development
ellos ven que
if
no
they
tiene
consider
la,
that this development
el
is
estudio de
not
impacto ambiental
complying with
dentro de
the
la propuesta
environmental
y
impact
no
study.
corresponde a lo que dice el Atlas de Riesgos
If
Municipales.
that study does not match
En
the
este
map
ejercicio
of
del
the
Marco Nacional de
municipality.
Desarrollo Urbano, Ordenamiento Económico Territorial,
In this exercise,
dice
or as part of this
que no
exercise,
existe un Atlas de Riesgo.
the government says that there is no risk map.
No hay ninguna mención de la situación de la
They
química
don't
o el
mention
estado y la calidad del agua que
anything
hay
about
en
the
esa zona.
quality of water in the
Si
municipality.
no fuera por un grupo de
Were it not
socio-environmentalistas
for a group
que
of
nos pusimos a revisar este
people
documento,
that
¿verdad?
studied the
Y estar
document,
en una reunión de unas 3, 4 horas en el calor de la
working
mañana de
for
lunes
a number of
y
hours under
trabajar
the
mejores
sun,
que la mala
if it
cocina.
weren't
El
for this
documento
group,
no es útil porque el
no one
documento
would have
no nos
known
da
that the document
estructura.
was not
Su
useful
estructura no tiene el
because
contenido
the
necesario
document does not
para dar
include the necessary
visibilidad a un
content
tomador de decisión, un
to
vendedor
provide the necessary
ciudadano.
information to decision
No
makers.
les da la información necesaria
The
para que
document is not
cuando haya
providing
un
the necessary
desarrollo allende
information.
en una
If
zona
there
que
is
no
a
hay agua,
development
podría
in
ser
a
que
region
la
with no
identificación
water or
misma
where
de
there
una
is
zona que
filtration
excede los
of
datos
the
de riesgo
watershed, or in an area that
sería
according to
útil.
the map is a risky
Si
area,
ese tomador de
well, if
decisión no
that
tiene
decision
información,
maker
pues
does
no
not
va a
have the
tomar
information,
una
obviously
decisión.
they are not going to raise their hand in order
Pero
to express
luego
their objection.
hay una consulta
But
pública,
as I was
hay
telling you, there
internet,
is a public
hay
consultation. We've
tecnología.
got
A lo
internet,
mejor
we've got
ustedes o
technology.
otros no tienen el tiempo
Maybe you don't have the time.
que puede ser aceptable. Sin embargo, cuando hay una bronca,
However, when there is a
para
problem,
mí como consejero y dos
as a
consejos
counselor
de planeación
in
municipal,
two
para
different
mí es
councils,
difícil tragar
for me it is very
una
difficult to
situación
swallow
que podría ser
a situation
prevenido
that
o que
might be
pudiera haber sido
stopped,
prevenido
a
con un
development
documento que
that
se hubiera
might be
mejorado.
stopped, or a
Es
document that
difícil
might be
cuando
improved.
solamente tres
It is
personas
difficult when only two people
levantan la mano
raise their hands,
diciendo que ya tienen
saying
conocimiento
that they
de
have
este
information
documento.
about this document or about this municipality consultation. Allow me to read a paragraph at the end of the guide. We have a section about human rights, and it reads, the environment right is part of the fourth article of the Constitution. I didn't know that. Our Constitution does not make any difference between civil rights and environmental rights. So the environmental right is a fundamental right that has the same hierarchy as any other right, human right. This means that the violation of environmental rights can be demanded by means of an amparo, by going to the different federal tribunals or by going to the different human rights commissions. I don't think we know the law. This is a discovery that I made with the lawyer that was helping us. But I was telling you, we need to make use of the legal instruments that we have, like the amparo and some others. Thank you everyone. I would say this is something very important that we have to put to the top of our agenda. The idea of this first event is to take the first step together. We have to work together. If we work together, we are going to feel safer and we are going to have more information, because if I don't have the information that is necessary for the discussion, might be provided by someone else. On your programs, you have the link to our website. We also have Henry Miller and his AC. And we have Graciela. Graciela can also participate. Uh, and we have to create networks. We have to network. So we have to come together. We have to talk. Right now, we're going to have 10 minutes. It's going to be a 10-minute break. And we are going to set some tables in the back because we want to have a dialogue in order to define the common ground. And maybe this will be the first ideas that we will work on in order to create the confidence in order to participate in the consultation. So in 10 minutes, we are going to meet in the back because that's where we are going to have the tables.